GERO 200, how are you? It's Wednesday. What is it now? We're into September. Today is September 5th. And all right, so we're going to continue on with our readings and quizzes looking at population. Looking at a really cool um, foundation that is might be an excellent area for you guys to think about in terms of jobs. They're always looking for interns, and it's called the Pew Foundation. All right, so we come over here, go right into here, and we're looking at the Pew Research Center, and they're looking at changes in U.S. population. So the last couple of weeks, were looking globally, looking at changes all around the world, both in developed and undeveloped countries. And now we are honing in on the U.S. situation. And we kind of redid this chapter in honor of you and your guys' generation and some of the trends that we are seeing for you guys. And so each of these readings here, short readings, have both the URL that you can click on right here or the PDF file. So the PDF file is something we just download directly using the browser. So it has some inconsistencies in it. So it might be easier just to click on the URL like so. And it talks about the mission of the Pew Center and in terms of Pew Research Center and specifically in kind of defining populations, okay? And so it goes into what they use in terms of demographic designation of the different generations, so the baby boomers, which is me, Generation X, which is Julia, and actually, what am I talking about? She's a boomer too, barely, and then and the millennials, which are the guys that have just preceded you, and now you guys are the post-millennials. And this first article just goes into what it takes to define it as a demographer and a population analysis. Okay, alrighty, and then if we go back here, this particular article then looks at for different trends that are happening, which is really kind of cool. We'll look at 7 demographic trends shaping the U.S. and the world in 2018. Okay, and the first thing that really pops out of you is the millennials are going to be outnumbering the baby boomers. They're entering some of their highest earning potential, and so again, it's another target age group in terms of developing a strategy for business opportunity where you could service that age group. Okay. The second trend has to do with cost of living, and you see this upswing right here in terms of the number of Americans that are living in multi-generation households, especially in places like Southern California, New York City, Chicago, where the cost of living is so outrageous. And my son just graduated from college. He's got his resume out there. He can hardly afford to pay a rent that costs more than my mortgage right now. And that's what you're kind of up against. And so the great thing about multi-generational households is the support system, okay? And you just have to work it out. You have to work out kind of living standards and guidelines, okay? I plan when my son gets his job to let him work here for a while, build up his savings, help him buy a house, okay? And launch that way. Far different from my generation and Julia. I left my house when I was 18 and never returned. And same thing for her. She left her house when she was 16, believe it or not, and never came back. Okay. All right, another big change. I don't know what it is with you guys, but for some reason, marriage just doesn't have the panache that it used to. So we see that the institution of marriage is going down, 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 down in the modern world. Okay, and people are having a lot more children without getting married. They're bouncing from relationship to relationship. Okay. All right. After decades of decline, motherhood and family size are starting to click up. Okay. But that it's kind of a little bit of a disconnect that we see with the decline in marriage. So there's just a lot more women that have decided they're going to have either be single and have women or have single and never get married. But we are seeing an increase in the number of births. Okay. Um, that's my alarm system. I'm going to turn it off right here. Okay. Um, we see a large increase in people fleeing um, really, really stressful conditions. Syria being the largest. We see there's so many immigrants. We see that in spite of the large uptick in migrants that are, since I said immigrants, I meant migrants that are fleeing um, political unrest. In the U.S., we see that the refugee arrival is ticking down. Okay, and that has to do a lot to do with our certain the politics that are in Washington right now. In spite of the decrease in refugees, we're seeing an increase in international arrivals, and that is has to do with jobs and students. And so the more qualified um, people are coming into our country in that way. All right, so that's what that's all about. Okay, we come down here and we can look at how millennials compare to their grandparents, and this is kind of a fun tutorial right here. So you click on this, and it just talks about the conditions of the world in terms of marital status, education, female education, male labor force, on and on and on. It's a real neat interactive graph right here. So we're looking at population analysis in terms of the different ethnicities here. And we see that, again, the traditional white America has decreased in size, going up to the millennials, okay? And this is looking at their ages right here and when they were born. We can look at marital status. Again, marriage is going way down. We can look at male education, okay? And we see that there's an increase in the number of people that are getting degrees, okay? We can look at female education. Again, this increase in the number of people getting degrees, okay? Male labor force, okay? And we see that that there is, again, more of a civilian employed versus armed forces. See the unemployment rate dropping. And again, it was based on when each of these generations was this age right here, okay? It shows you right there, okay. All righty, and you just go on and on and on. It just shows you the really interesting dynamics of the population. That's kind of the work that is done when you go at the Pew Research Center, okay. So I want you to just kind of scroll through this, okay? Again, this is the definition that we were talking about in that one paper right here. All right, and from all that, from those different readings, then you will be able to get in here and do your quiz. All righty, awesome. Now, in anticipation of next week, we're going to entering into a little section on biology. So we start with the discussion. So we come up here to the discussion board right here, and you see that the discussion in advance of we go to the readings for next week. It's the same reading, okay? So we're going to come over here back to the discussion board, and it's this theories of aging chapter. And we're going to ask you to just go ahead and open this chapter and quickly go through the major theories of why we age and what you think biologically is the most realistic, and then think about the kind of business opportunities out there. And I'm going to send you some links on that. Interestingly enough, one of the aspects of aging that has to do with different hormones that underlie our patterns of growth and are related to nutrition. There was a professor at Harvard, David Sinclair, that They had developed a molecule that looked a lot like the resveratrol, which is the antioxidant supposed to protect us in red wine. And it also activated a molecule called sirtuin that has been shown to increase the protection that cells have. It looked great in terms of his animal studies, and GlaxoSmithKline, I think it was 2009, bought the rights to his company for $270 million. And interestingly enough, then it all fell apart, and the clinical trials didn't work, and they ceased the operation of that company. So it shows you big business. All righty. Okay. I do want you to keep an eye on what's coming up. I'm going to give you a how-to lecture on how to do CT1, and that's coming up in my next series of lectures. Okay, guys, it's late at night. I had the lecture all day at USC today, and so I want you to kind of just put yourself into the position of a population research analyst when you look at this Pew Research Center site, and then we're going to start getting into aging. All right, so we'll see you next time.